Welcome back to Level Construction. All right, things are moving along quite smoothly. At this point, it's time to go ahead and get our movers in place. We've got 4 of them. We've got 2 doors. In fact, we're looking at them right now. And we've got 2 lifts. So, Logan, let's go ahead and get those set up.
All right, let's take a look at the lift in the first room. So I'm going to turn our attention back to this first lift. And I'm going to begin by grabbing the interp actor that we had aligned to the floor, to the walkway, and move it down to the floor. Because in both cases on the lifts, I want the elevators or the lifts to start on the ground level. Because if you're at the top level, you can easily jump down.
Sure.
But if you're on the ground, you have no way to get up. So I'm going to begin by moving this just above the floor tiles. And that's looking pretty good. We could get a little bit more accurate, but I mean, it's attached to those things. It can move up and down, so we'll let it float off the ground by just a few units.
While we're down here, let's go ahead and get some dynamic lighting going on.
Right, as we had pointed out before, it's a dynamic, or it's going to respect only dynamic channels. So let me turn on the necessary lights and have them use the dynamic channel. And to do that, let me grab my group that I created for lights and turn them back on. And then I can grab all the necessary lights. For this lift, I'm going to grab all of the lights are on the bottom. Now, I mean, this may be a few extra shadows and would be a little bit more performance intensive, but in this case it'll look kind of nice with the extra shadows being cast around the base. So I'm going to grab all 3 of these, and we'll expand the light section, and then expand light component, jump into lighting channels, and let's turn on the dynamic channel. And we can see immediately this interp actor now lights up. It's now being properly lit on the correct channels.
And we've got, 2 more lights straight up above?
Right, while we're adjusting lights, we might as well go up to the top. We've got these 2 lights. You'll note there's not one on the right side. So we'll grab these 2. And once again, we're under the lighting section already. Let's just turn on dynamic. And these guys are already set up.
Perfect, okay.
Alright, now let's turn our attention to making this guy move. He's already an interp actor. So let's open up Kismet and create a mover sequence for him. So with the interp actor selected, we'll go into Kismet, right-click, and say New Event using interp actor 0, and the event we would like is a mover. This not only creates the mover event, but also a matinee sequence for that interp actor. You can see that it's already associated to the event, and already has the interp actor plugged into a group inside of this matinee sequence. So let's open up this matinee sequence. And I'm also going to close out Kismet so I can work back and forth between matinee and our viewport. Alright, in here we've got a movement track created, and I could probably hide out our curve editor since we're not going to use it. We'll get some more space to use here inside the movement track. So the first thing I want to do is I want to lower our overall time range down a little bit. Yeah, I want this entire sequence to take place over 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, sounds good.
So let's take our range down to 1.5. Let's even extend the looping segment to extend to the full 1.5 seconds.
Okay.
Now looking at our time slider, we're currently at 0 seconds with the mover on the floor, which is correct. So I want to drop a key at this point. So we'll go up with the time slider here and we'll add a key. Now we'll move the time slider over to 1.5 seconds, add another key, and then adjust this key. So you can even see in the corner of the viewport we're adjusting key 1 right now. So we'll simply grab the interp actor, move it up, and you'll notice a line actually gets drawn in the viewport itself to represent the motion that this interp actor is going to use. So let me move the camera around so I can get a good angle on this, so I get the mover exactly where I want when it's at the very top. And now we could even scroll back and forth in Matinee and see that this is the animation that should play out. And if I get a good view with the viewport, we could even play through this and see that that is what we should be getting.
Okay,
and
perfect.
I'm pretty happy with how that's working. So let me close out of Matinee now. And really, it's just about ready to be tested. There is one thing we'll note if we try to run it now, and that there is no collision on this.
That's right. So it wouldn't really work.
Before we jump in, it would probably be wise to grab the properties for the interp actor. Take a look at its collision and make sure that the collision type is set to block all, to make sure that we do get a collision event when our player collides with it. And that's all I can think of, so I think it's time to test. Let's play from here in the editor, and let's jump on our new lift.
Perfect.
See, as soon as we do, we can ride the lift to the top, and then the lift returns and goes back to the bottom. We do that one last time because I wanted to check the lighting when we get up to the top, and I think everything's looking good.
All right, so let's go ahead and turn our attention to the second lift.
All right, should be basically the same process. First things first, though, let's get the dynamic channels enabled for these two lights that are near the lift.
Okay.
So the two lights near the fluorescent lights on the I-beam, grab their properties and make sure we turn on dynamic. And now at the bottom we can see that the lift is showing up nicely. So with the interpactor selected, it's back to Kismet, where I can right-click and add a new event using Interpactor 1, which is going to be another mover event. So we have all the necessary things connected together, the event and the matinee sequence itself. So once again, let's jump into matinee, and let's scroll a little bit, adjust our times to give ourselves a range of 1.5 seconds. And we'll even scroll out the looping range. Then we'll put the time slider at 0, drop a key. Time slider at 1.5 seconds, drop another key. And with that key still selected, let's adjust it. I'll close out of Kismet to give us some more room. And then I'll simply drag the mover, and let me get my viewport in a good location. Well, fairly good. Was good until I moved it behind a light. But let me zoom in just a little bit and get this lining up. Maybe just a little bit down. There we go. That's working good.
Okay.
So I think we can close out of matinee now. Adjust the properties on our interpactor to make sure that we enable collision. So we'll set the collision to block all. And then I believe we should be ready to test. So let's play from right in front of the lift. Jump on the lift, ride it to the top, jump off, and watch the lift return. So,
excellent.
Very nice. Alright, now we can turn our attention to doors. So let me move my view up into maybe the top door, and let's find the static mesh that we want to use for the interpactor for the door itself. I'm going to jump into the static mesh browser, and let's look for the LT doors package. Here we have LT doors, so let me scroll down until I find a mesh called SM Doorway 04. Let's select this mesh, and let's add it into the doorway as an interpactor. So add interpactor static mesh doorway 4. Alright, looking good. Now we need to align this a little bit, and to make the alignment somewhat easier, let me try grabbing just the door and the doorway and hiding everything that is not those two actors. Alright, let's see if we can get some of this lined up now. Let's move this over to the side a little bit, and it looks like we're going to need to have this significantly higher. Let me move it down so that it's flush with the floor. That'll make measurements a little bit easier. Let's see about how high we need to go. I think about 240 units would get it significantly out of the way, and the mesh is currently at 160 units, so let's see what we would need to scale it as. Let's bring up a calculator and say 240 divided by 160 gives us a scale of 1.5. Let's plug that into scale in Z, 1.5, and there we go, scaled nicely. Now in perspective view, we don't have dynamic lights nearby yet, so let me jump to unlit so I get an idea of what's going on.
Also, looking at this, we might want to move it over just a tad to the left. You see a little bit of spacing in here.
Right.
Actually, that's pretty good.
Well,
right
I just moved it a little bit in the top.
Okay.
You were right, though. It was actually off to the left a little bit because I had moved on to scaling. But looking at that, that's good. We've got the mesh up to the sides here so we don't see through it. And that's looking pretty nice.
Okay.
So let's bring all of our actors back so we get an idea of how everything's looking. And now I think we're ready. Oh, before we set up the matinee, let me
take care of the lights.
Let me actually duplicate it over.
Okay.
Because we need another one for the other door. So, and in an uncluttered view as possible, let me grab the doorway, and the other doorway that I want to duplicate to. Show only those actors, and then we'll duplicate this mesh down. Let's see, from a side view, let's hold Alt and snap this guy down to the other door. And he looks pretty much lined up, looking at the top.
Cool.
It's looking good. Alright, let's bring all of our actors back, and then let's focus on the top one. And like you had said, it's if we go back to lit, like we had done with the lifts, let's grab these two nearby lights and enable dynamic lighting for them. So turn on the dynamic channel so that we can see them lighting the actual doorway mover. And while we're at it, it might not be a bad idea to put a set of lights on the other side as well. So I can duplicate these lights off and drag them over to here.
And we can go do the same thing with the lights down by the other door.
Let's grab both lights, grab their properties, and enable the dynamic channel. Jump around to the other side of the door, and duplicate a set over to this side.
Nice.
Alright. And now that should leave us with just the matinee sequence necessary to make this door move, do its thing. So let's grab the interactor itself. Let's go into Kismet, and let me arrange some of this a little bit more nicely. Let's move this over a little bit, right under here. Then right below that, let's make a new event using interactor 4, a new mover event. Then let's jump into its matinee. I'll close out Kismet to give us some room to work with. Select the movement track, and let's see. Let's first get our range established. Let's take, let's zoom out just a little bit so we can see what we're looking at. Let's take the overall range again. This time, instead of 1.5 seconds, I want these doors to work faster. I want them to open very quickly and move out of the way. So we'll drop their time all the way down to 1 second. So let me get the looping range down, and then bring the entire movement down to 1 second. Now we can drop a key at a time of 0. We can drop a key at a time of 1 second. And then we can adjust that second key. So adjusting key 1, we'll do this from the perspective view. I'll switch into unlit momentarily just so I can get a really good idea of how far up I should move this door. I think something like that might look good.
Okay.
I mean, we could move it maybe...
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, right there. I like that. So then we can track back and forth or even play through this and see that that's what our animation is looking like.
Okay.
And that's looking really good. So let's close out matinee. Let's also check the properties of this interactor and make sure that we turn collision on, because we wouldn't want people to be able to jump through too quickly or to be able to shoot at the door to open it.
Sure.
And thinking about it, I'm going to alter the behavior of the door just a little bit different than the lift. But let's jump in and test it just to see how it's working. What I want to do is change the way that it's triggered, because right now if we run into it, we can't really stand on it because it's not a lift.
Right.
We need to change the thing that actually triggers off this Kismet sequence. Instead of a mover event, while that was convenient to get all the matinee thrown in, is not actually going to work for us in this case. Instead, I want more of a trigger scenario. What I'm actually going to do is throw a trigger volume around this door, and we'll use that trigger volume to kick off the matinee sequence. So we can close Kismet for just a moment to give me a lot of room to work with in the viewports. And let me create the builder brush, make sure that all of its dimensions are 256, and then let's center that up on the door. And I think because we had our focus right here, it actually did create it, well, almost centered. Let's move this up right about here. Now this doesn't have to be nearly as exact. This is just a response area for the trigger itself.
That's right.
So what I'm going to do is right-click on the Add Volume button, and we're going to add in a trigger volume. Now I can move the builder out of the way, and we can see our green trigger volume here. Let me bring Kismet back up now. And let's right-click and make a new event using this volume called Touch. And then we'll take the touched output, and we'll connect that to play in the matinee sequence, and then untouched, and we'll connect that to reverse. And let's, should be able to try it out. Before we do though, let me grab the trigger, and let me set its max trigger count to 0, so that we can re-trigger this as many times as we wish. Alright, let's jump in and try this out. Play from here, and if we walk up to the door, door opens. If we walk back, the door closes. And it looks like we might need to be rebuild lighting because we're not getting lighting over in that other room.
In fact, we're getting the message right there, lighting needs to be rebuilt.
But the mover's working very nicely now. If we walk up to it and then walk away quickly, then the untouch event causes the door to close. Or if we were to walk all the way through, then the door closes behind us. So that's working quite nicely. Before we worry about the lighting, let me get the other door set up, since we know exactly how to approach this now. Let's grab this other door, grab Kismet. Just to get everything clicked into place really quickly, we could make the entire mover sequence. We know we're going to be deleting the event, so we can drop that off immediately. Jump into the matinee, close Kismet for a moment, go into movement, zoom our view out just a little bit so we can see everything we need to work with here. Let's take our range down to 1 second, take our looping to that same second, drop a key at 0, drop a key at 1. With key 1 selected, move the door into its appropriate position just about there. Unless it was a little higher. I don't remember if the other one was maybe... No, right about there looks good.
Back out a little bit?
Sure.
Door. We might want to push it back in just a little.
Oh, yeah,
too.
just a fraction because it's
just
actually poking through the wall there.
Which we need. Go ahead and push it back. We'll just need to update our keyframes as well.
Right. Let me try.
Yeah, just go all the way back down.
Or let me just make sure that doing that fits the same.
Oh, one more. All right, so 3 in all.
And that has this. It's almost like the wall is behaving differently on this side. What are we? Oh, wait, that's outside the map.
Yep.
That doesn't matter. And so let's take our. Let me select the door also. Why is that? Because the door itself is selected here. Let me move these back forward because we've got the door opening up. It might be because we just can't see above this door.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at it, what would we need to do? Since this door opens up directly into the vent, the door itself would need to be pushed back. We might need to take this one room and actually move the whole room back just a little bit.
Okay, well, let's go ahead. I'm not quite convinced yet that we really have a problem. Let's go ahead and update key 0.
That's a good point if the door is just farther back in. So 1, actually the key 0, so 1, and let's see if we can judge this, 2, oh, and I don't have key 0 selected, so let's select that, center up on our other set of keys so that they're in a complete vertical line, and it might actually work. I mean, it's not centered on the door necessarily, but we could get an idea of what it looks like before we jump through and edit too many things. The animation looks good now.
Yeah, animation's fine.
Let's close out of Matinee, and let's duplicate that trigger volume. So let me go and find the green volume here. Duplicate that over to this other door. See if we can find the sender right about there. And then move it down in Z to the new floor, right about here. Maybe even down just a little bit more. And then we open up Kismet one last time so we can bring that in as an event. So a touch event from that trigger volume where touched is connected to play and untouched is connected to reverse.
Okay. Let's go ahead and rebuild real quick. Get our lighting and all picked up.
Do you want to do a quick test and make sure that it's...
Actually, the test I'm wanting to do is with lighting as well, so
okay.
It'll only take a second.
Yeah, let's do a build all and give it a second. That way we'll get the lights rebuilt. Providing I haven't moved the lights in the room. I forgot to check those before we built, but I think everything should still be in place.
I think so. We shall find out here in just a second.
So give it just a little bit of time to build.
Because, to be honest with you, I think this is going to work just fine.
Alright, almost there. A little bit of encoding light maps. A few more seconds.
And here it comes.
And apparently it has just realized that we need to clean BSP for all the new edits we had done. We'll do that here in just a minute. Let me switch over to lit mode and look inside the room, and in the editor it looks fine.
Mm-hmm.
So let's play the map, test this new trigger, make sure that this new door works. And it does. Untouched doesn't look like it's responding so well. Oh, rather not untouched, but
that's right, triggered only once.
Trigger once.
But that's okay. Back up for me and look up at the vent. And I'm not having a problem with it.
I don't see it in the vent. We might actually turn this light's radius down because it looks like some of this light's bleeding out into this area out here.
Yeah. But I just wanted to point out to everyone, that works for me.
It's lit a little bit into the doorway, but I mean, unless you really scrutinize it, it's kind of hard to tell. So, I mean, I think that'll work, really.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see. Let me go back to Kismet momentarily, grab this touch event, and make sure that the max trigger count is set to 0 so we can retrigger this. Just for the sake of lighting, let's see what this guy's radius is. And let me pull back to here. I guess we aren't showing light radii in the perspective. But looking at it out here, there we go.
It's huge.
So let me grab the radius of both of these lights. Let me zoom out a little bit, grab their properties. Under lighting, let's turn this down, maybe all the way down to 384. Maybe even 256.
256 looks pretty good.
I'm alright with the room being dim, because again, I'm not considering that final lighting. Alright, I guess we should rebuild one last time with the new light edits. And really that's about it. I'm going to rebuild just to make sure that our lighting is in fact tamed down a bit, not affecting the rest of the level.
Sure, but the good thing is we have 4 simple movers in place. 2 lifts, 2 doors, and it all seems to be working quite nicely.
So give us just a little bit of time to rebuild it, because I do want to test. I know I've set the trigger count to 0, but I would like to run through it one last time.
Sure.
Make sure that all that's working nicely. Maybe even run back and forth between some of the lifts.
Okay.
But we should be just about there. We're on to the encoding of the light maps. So here in just a moment, and I could run clean BSP materials because we don't have to rebuild. We could just say clean. There's our 83. Rerun our map check, and our map check comes up clean.
Good deal.
All right. Now, one last play test. Here's our door. Our door opens. We can run through it. Our door closes. And we can repeat the sequence or jump away from the door. We should be able to take a nice lift ride to the top, to the other door, and the other door closes.
Excellent.
So that's looking really well, unless you wanted to test the other lift, but I mean, we had tried that.
Yeah, we'd already tried that one earlier, so with that, that is going to wrap up this video on movers. Thanks a lot.